Good afternoon, everyone. I, Ramya Sakpal, on behalf of Shahan Anchor Kachi Engineering College, Mumbai, India, welcomes you all to Hybrid Webinar Series 2.0, Innovative and Emerging Technologies in the Field of Research. This international series is hosted by Sarkek Research Cell. Let's begin the series of international webinar by seeking the divine blessings from Ma Saraswati. It's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for this session, Dr. Narendra Kumar Dasre. He is an associate professor in applied mathematics at DY Patil Group's Ram Rao Adak Institute of Technology, Nerul, Navi Mumbai. He holds a doctorate degree in field of applied mathematics from KBC North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, and is actively involved in extensive research in pure and applied mathematics in engineering. He also holds a specialization in mathematics for machine learning and specialization in Python programming. Equipped with 18 years of teaching experience, he has authored and reviewed 12 national and international books and published 11 research papers in national and international reputed journals. Sir has also introduced the magic transform known as the Dasre Gujarati transform and is also a member of editorial reviewer boards for many international reputed journals from USA, UK, Egypt, and many more. Sir is part of international society like International Association of Engineering Hong Kong, International Association of Computer Science and Information Technology Singapore, and is the president of Engineering Mathematics Teachers Society India. Sir's interests are image processing, topology, number theories, and applied mathematics. We would like to honor our guest with a sapling as a token of gratitude from Sarkek Research Center. Sir, please accept.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Yeah. So I thank the management and the principal and the team who is organizing this hybrid webinar series 2.0 for inviting me and giving me opportunity to express my views about the mathematics in machine learning. So,
Sir,
yep,
just an announcement for the audience.
yes, please.
Audience, I'm very sure this 1 hour session will be the best technical session for all of us. Before handing over the session to our speaker, I have a few announcements. All participants, if you have any queries in between the session, please write them down in the chat box. Frequently asked questions will be taken at the end of the session. Also, a feedback link will be provided at the end in the chat box. Participants will receive e-certificate based on the information provided in the feedback form. Hence, please mention your name and email ID correctly in the feedback form. You can also upload a selfie in the feedback form. Now I'll request our honorable guest, Dr. Narendra Kumar Dasre, sir, to please take over the session and start the session. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Ramya.
Thank you, sir.
So I hope it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So very good morning, all of you. Now, the topic for this today's talk is mathematics for machine learning. Several times while teaching or learning, we come across the subject of mathematics, and we think that is it really applicable, or what are the applications of mathematics? So, if we try to find, there are several applications, and it is said that there is nothing without application. Now, I will be exploring one of the area called machine learning. So, what is the mathematics required? How it is applied? What is machine learning. So that we are going to do in this session. So let us try to understand some basics of mathematics that are required, and then we'll move on to the machine learning. So if we consider mathematics, it has several branches, and out of these several branches, just few are listed here, which are highly useful in the subject of machine learning. So first of all, we require linear algebra, then we require analytic geometry, then we require matrix decompositions. So vector calculus is also equally important, and after this the branch probability and distributions, this is also required. It's a statistics and the operation research or optimization. So these are the few topics or few subjects of mathematics or branches of mathematics that are required in machine learning. So if we want to understand machine learning, first we need to understand this mathematics. Now we'll see one by one what exactly we use in machine learning from these subjects. So let us try to understand the linear algebra. So linear algebra is the branch which deals with the linear transformations from m dimension to n dimension, and then which generate basically the matrix. So if we consider a transformation, a linear transformation from the m dimension to n dimension, it is like a path from moving one domain to another domain, and this path is defined by a matrix, and that's why this matrices come into picture, which connect the m dimensional path to n dimensional path by means of the n cross m matrix. Hence we need to understand this matrices. So we know the types of matrices, there are different types. Then we need to understand the rank of the matrix. So when we think of the rank, what it gives, is it just a number or does it mean something? So the important thing is that it is not just a number, it is very useful. It means something. What exactly means? So if we think the data as a matrix, so if we collect the data, there are several parameters and on several scales it is collected, and that's why if I plot the scales as columns and the information as the rows, then it becomes a matrix. So basically our data is a matrix. Now we need to understand what type of matrix is this. Okay, is it a square matrix, is it a rectangular matrix, is it a diagonal matrix, like that? It is a upper triangular matrix or is it a lower triangular matrix? So this comes in the basics. Now the rank is the number of important factors. What the rank means? The number of important factors in this data. So initially when we collect the data, okay, we do not think that what are the important factors. Okay, we just collect the data based on our assumption. But to judge that assumption, we need to find the rank of this matrix. And once we know the rank of this matrix, then we will come to know what are the important factors and how many important factors are there. So this way the rank helps us to understand the important factors in the data or important terms in the data or the importance of the parameter that we are setting for the particular data. What happens if the rank is less than the order? So the remaining rows or remaining columns are linearly dependent on the data or number of rank vectors or number of rank columns. Hence, we need to understand the linear dependence and independence. And if we think what are the linear independent, then the number of rows equal to the rank are linearly independent and remaining are the dependent on them. And now this helps us to understand the system of linear equations. So we have used the rank analysis, or we use commonly the rank analysis to find the solution of system of linear equations. To understand how many solutions are possible for a system of linear equations, we again need rank. So here, if we consider the system to be Ax is equal to B, and A is a square matrix of order n, the number of variables is also going to be n. Then the rank decides whether the system has a unique solution, system has no solution, or the system has infinitely many solutions. Now this becomes important for us to understand the solution of the system, what we will have. And then if we can understand the rank, the linear independence, dependence, and the system of solution or solutions of the system of linear equations, then this solution is a vector. So if we consider the system of linear equations, whatever the dimension we have, so it generates a solution vector, and then we need to move to the vector spaces. Okay, so sometimes we have more than one solution or infinitely many solutions. Then how these infinitely many solutions are generated? So they are generated using the linearly independent vectors which are in the vector space of the same dimension. So we need to understand the linear mappings and affine spaces. This part of linear algebra is highly used in machine learning. We'll see one by one. Then if I move onwards, then we have analytic geometry, so which is very important in machine learning. Now, what are the topics of analytic geometry we apply in machine learning? So as we have seen already the vector spaces, so we have the different norms. We have 1 norm, 2 norm, p norms for the vectors, and then we consider inner product, and then we move on to the inner product spaces. So if we understand vector, if we understand the norms, then we are able to understand the inner products. Now these inner products can be defined in different ways. So sometimes we define them as the length also, the norm is also defined as the length sometimes, or the distances. Now there are several ways to define the length and the distances. So we will see how this length and the distances are used in machine learning. So sometimes we need to understand the angle between the vectors and orthogonality of the vectors. Then we can convert to the basis of the vector spaces, and then the important is orthonormal basis. So once we can understand the basis, so this basis is again relates to rank and nullity, so it goes to the matrices, and then we can calculate the projections of the vectors, and these projections basically we calculate orthogonal projections and orthogonal complements. Then using the matrices we can have the rotations in vectors, okay, that can be used in machine learning. Now the next branch, what about the matrix decompositions? So basically matrix decomposition is nothing but the factorization of data. Okay, so we are very familiar with the concepts that factorization of number, factorization of polynomials. So if we apply two matrices, then it becomes matrix decomposition. So matrix decomposition is as simple as the factorization of matrices. So if we want to go for the factorization of matrices, what are the different concepts that we need to understand? So basically first we need to understand determinant, then we need to understand trace. So once you understand the determinants and trace of matrices, then definitely we are able to find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors. So using this eigenvalue and eigenvectors, we can have eigen decomposition. So if the matrix is diagonalizable, then we can have the decomposition of the matrix, which is called as eigen decomposition, which can be calculated using eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Now we have the another type of decomposition, LU decomposition. So we can decompose or we can find a factorization of any matrix into a lower matrix and an upper triangular matrix. So lower triangular matrix and upper triangular matrix, which called as LU decomposition. So there are several ways to find a LU decomposition. So we have Doolittle's decomposition, then we have Cholesky decomposition, and many more. So we have QR decomposition. If the matrix is not a square matrix, so determinant is possible for a square matrix. Eigenvalues and eigenvectors can be easily calculated for the square matrices. LU decomposition can be calculated for the square matrices. What about the matrices or the rectangular matrices, where number of rows is not equal to the number of columns? Now for that we have a singular value decomposition. So how do we calculate the singular value decomposition? So here we have the matrix approximation. So if we have a matrix of order m cross n, which is a rectangular matrix, and we want to calculate the decomposition of this, we want to find out what are the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of this matrix. So by using determinant it is not possible, and hence we have to approximate this matrix. So we approximate the square of the matrix by considering a square approximated by A into A transpose. And if we consider A into A transpose, then that approximate the square of the matrix, which is a square matrix, and hence it becomes possible then to find out the eigenvalue and eigenvectors for this square matrix. And if we consider the square root of this, then it gives you the approximation of the rectangular matrix. So these are the basics which we need to understand in matrix decomposition. Then what part of vector calculus we really use in machine learning? So basically, when we consider the vector, it is more than one dimension. Okay, and then if you have more than one dimension, so in simple words, we have more than one independent variable. So if we have more than one independent variable, then we need to move with the partial differentiation. So if I have a function and I find the partial derivative of that function, so what exactly we get? So what is mean by the partial derivative of the function? So actually it is the tangential component in that particular direction. So if we have a function of x and y, and we are finding the derivative, partial derivative of the function in terms of x, so it is the tangential component, more known as gradients. So gradient in that particular x direction or gradient in that particular y direction, and this can be used for the vector valued function. So in vector calculus, we know the partial differentiation, we have the operator, del operator we use, and we calculate the gradient, which is the tangential surface to the given function or given surface. Function is nothing but a surface, and these surfaces in data behave as a behavior of the data. So we call it as the behavior of the data. And then we have some more concepts like backpropagation, automatic differentiation. So these are the blocks directly used for machine learning. Then higher order derivatives, but basically they relate with the partial differentiation. Then we linearize the given functions by using Taylor series, where we have more than one variables. So this part of vector calculus we use basically in machine learning. Then what we use from the probability and distributions. If we have to understand the probability, so first we need to understand what is the random variable. So once we understand random variable, then we are able to define its probability. So by defining the probability, we actually construct the probability space of that random variable. And this random variable can be of two types. Either it may be discrete or it may be continuous. So if it is a discrete one, we calculate the probability distribution function, and if it is a continuous, then we have the probability density function. And using that, at the several points, we can calculate the distributions, probability distributions of these random variables. Then we need to understand what are the standard distributions, what are the standard discrete distributions, what are the continuous probability distributions. So we have like binomial distributions, which is a discrete one. Then we have the exponential distributions where we use. So we have the normal distributions, we have Poisson distributions, we have Gaussian, we call it Gaussian also. So this is, and some of them are the discrete, some of them are the continuous. Then we need to understand how we are able to find the probability of the event defined over the partition, or the probability of a partition over the given event. and that's why we require the total probability theorem as well as the Bayes theorem. So what is the partition? So partition in machine learning we can call as categorization. So we categorize the given data into different categories that we'll see later. Okay, but for that, this is the basic that we use. Now in optimization, so as in the vector calculus we have seen the gradients. So in optimization we have more than one dimension, and in that more than one dimension we want always the best value, or we want always the best results. To obtain these best results we need to model the situation. So situation can be modeled in linear or non-linear way, and if it can be modeled in linear or non-linear way, then we have different methods to find the optimal or the best value. And in linear we have simplex method, we have big M method, we have dual simplex method, we have revised simplex method to find the best value in linear model. If we have the non-linear model, then we have the different parameters to be considered. So whether it is constrained, whether it is unconstrained, then we have to decide the methods, whether we have to go for gradient descent methods or we have to go for the convex optimization. So depending on the model, what the model we get for the given situation, we have to decide the technique to get the best results, and that's why we should know this optimization. So this was the basics of mathematics which we need to understand or to do machine learning in a better way. And now we'll see what is machine learning exactly. So I'll include the previous parameters, the mathematics that we have discussed, how it is used and where it is used. Okay, so let us try to understand what is machine learning. So first thing we need to know. So here, when we have the data, okay, so that data to be fed to the particular computer, software or machine, and then we want the machine should take the decision and give us the best result. So basically machine learning is a field of study that gives computer the capability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So here, as I said, we provide the data and then we ask machine to analyze it and get the best result. So machine learning is one of the most exciting technologies that one would have ever come across. So nowadays we are mostly shifting on data science, machine learning and AI. So if I want to go for AI, then basically I need to understand data. So data is given to machine. So machine will do the analysis and will feed to AI to take the decision. And then the real-time decision is taken and then it is applied directly. So without much more interference of the human. Now, what we need to understand in machine learning, or what are the different components of machine learning? So first we need to understand data, then we need to understand how the data is processed. Okay, then what are the different types of machine learning, then how this work. So this machine can be supervised, can be left. Okay, so you have supervised learning, you have unsupervised learning, and sometimes we have to tune the machine. So basically first we do supervised learning, then we go for unsupervised, let the machine take the decision. But if the decisions are not going to be appropriate, then we need to reinforcement, and then that's why we have to understand the part how this machine learning will be reinforced, okay, so that the machine will perform in a better way, and that's why we have reinforcement learning. So after taking some decisions, it has to understand whether the decisions are going to be correct or not, and if they are differing from the required one, so we need to tune, in other words, reinforcement. Okay, so we have to reinforce these machines and reinforce this learning, and that's why it is called as reinforcement learning. Then when we have a huge data, okay, so basically whatever the data we get from the sensors or from the collections or from the sources, it is very huge. Okay, so the dimension of the data is actually the matrix of order few thousands by thousands. Okay, so data may be 5,000 by 2,000, or it may be 5,000 by 10,000. Like that, we have this matrices. And then if we want to know what are the important component out of the 5,000 component, then manually it becomes difficult, and that's why we use the techniques to reduce the dimension, and that's why the rank analysis gives you very important thing, the very important tool to reduce the dimension. And then these are used in natural language processing, neural networks, and so many ways. So we'll try to understand these components one by one, and we'll see the how mathematics pops in this parts. So first we need to understand how we get the data, what is the processing we have to do with this data. Here first we get the data. Okay, so these are the different components of the processing of data. So first we understand, now we create the test, then this sklearn is a library. Okay, so it's a Python library. It can be used with other programming languages also. Then we generate the test data sets for machine learning. Then we do the data processing. Sometimes there are missing figures in data, okay, or sometimes the observations are not recorded due to the failure of the sensors, or due to the human error, or due to non-entry of any parameters like that. So for that we have to go with the data cleansing. Then if required, we have to scale this data. So for example, one test we are conducting, and then it is for it is for the range 1 to 20. The other test we are conducting, it is with the range 1 to 10. So these two tests or two things are on the two different scales. So what we have to do is we have to get them on the same scales. So either 1 to 10 should be scaled to 1 to 20, or 1 to 20 should be scaled to 1 to 10, and like that. So here we do that feature scaling. Feature means a particular test, a particular thing that we want to focus. So we have to do the proper labeling, encoding of data set, and then where we have this missing figures or over more than the required observations we get sometimes, so that we do with the SMOT and the near miss algorithms. So these are some of the algorithms that are used. Now we need to understand how the data processing is done. So first we have to collect the data. Then we have to format it in a proper way, and then whatever the inputs we have, we process them accordingly, we rearrange them, and then after processing this, rearranging this, the output is saved into storage. So a copy always we have for the given data, because sometimes after processing we have to go back and check the observations, so we always need a copy of this data to be stored. Now, what are the different things that we have to do while data processing? So we get raw data, we structure them. After structuring, we have to do the exploration data analysis, we call it EDA, and then we need to understand, or we can get the different insights, reports, or visual graphs we plot, and then this is the part. These are the parts of data processing. Then what is the data cleansing? So we have to consider the data. So as I said, there will be some observations which may be out of our range, so recorded due to failure or recorded due to error. Okay, and we have to fix these errors. Then we have to manage the outliers as the values which shows more than the required observation. And then if there is a failure of the sensor, or there is a failure when the data is not recorded, so we have to consider that missing figure as the average. Okay, so we use the simple technique. We consider the average of the data, and then we replace that missing figure with the average. So this process is called data cleansing. So here simple mathematics we have used. So we use a threshold and we remove the unwanted outliers. We use the average, and then we can fix the missing data or the places where data is not recorded. Now, if we consider the feature scaling, as I said, so two tests are performed on the two different range, then we have to get them on the same scale. So either of them will be considered, and then the other to be scaled to that. And the best technique that we use is normalization. Okay, so we normalize all the feature vectors. So actually this feature are now vectors for us. So we consider these feature vectors, and then we normalize this all feature vectors. Okay, so if we normalize all feature vectors, then all ranges will vanish, and then we can get all features on the same scale. So it becomes easy to understand the data, it becomes easy to process the data. Now we need to understand data. So for example, we consider a data set with the features. So here I am considering three features. So age of the person, then salary of the person, and then what BHK apartment that person has. So these are the three features we are considering here, and the size of the data is 5000. Okay, so if we see using these three features, so I have the matrix 3 by 5000. Okay, so I can have these three rows and 5000 columns, or if I take the transpose, so it is going to be 5000 by 3. Okay, then if we consider these features as age, salary, and BHK apartment, so these are going to be independent features. Now if these are independent, so how to categorize this data, how to visualize this data, then we can consider. So suppose if I have age and salary, so I fix these two, age and salary, and now I think that whether the person is able to buy the apartment or not, and if the answer is yes, so we put that person in one category, and if the answer is no, then we put it in the other category. So using this, we can make the classification of data into two classes. So first is yes, the second is no. So here we can visualize this data. So simple, we have, this is a class 1, this is the class 2. So these are the people which are in yes class, these are the people which are in no class. So this is the simple technique that we have used to visualize the data, or to categorize the data into two categories or into two classes. Now the question is, if I have the another person coming in, so I have a data of 5,000 people, then I have the another person, and then I have to decide where this person will go, or in which class this person will go. So whether this person will go in yes class, or whether this person will go in no class. And that's why what we do, we decide the distance of that person from the distance of the class. So for the class, we consider the centroid of the class. Now here, as I said, the distances, so there are several ways to calculate the distances. So we can consider the Euclidean distance. So Euclidean distance of the particular person, and we have our class. So from that class, we consider the Euclidean distance of the particular person, and then we can decide if the distance is minimum, that person belongs to the class, and if the distance is not less than the distance of other class, then that person does not belong to the class, it belongs to the other class. So this way, using the distance, we are able to decide. So first we have seen the Euclidean distance, then we have the Manhattan distance, then we have the Minkowski distance. Okay, these are the different formulas for distances. And now how we are able to go for the feature scaling. So as I said, the simplest technique is the normalization. Okay, so we can go for the min-max normalization. So every value here we can take it to the range 0 to 1. Okay, so here we define the range by using the maximum and minimum value, and then we get this ith value to the new ith value by using this formula. So this is called min-max normalization, or in simple words, it's just normalization. Now we have the standardization. So sometimes normalization is one of the technique to get the features in the scale 0 to 1. So standardization is also the another technique, but here we use the parameter standard deviation and mean. Okay, so in the previous technique we have used range. Here in this technique we are using the average, mean is average, and standard deviation. So using these techniques, we are able to get into the feature scaling. So we can scale down this all the features to one scale, and that is going to be 0 to 1. So all the features will be on one scale, 0 to 1. Now we need to understand the types of learning. So what we have here, we have input, then we train the machine by using the algorithm. So whatever the required result we want, so we put them into the algorithm, and then we check whether our algorithm is going to work or not. And then after training, we give input to this logic or the model that we have developed, and then we see that whether the required output is obtained or not. So basically, whatever the data we get, okay, so out of this data we use 80-20 portion. So 80% we use for training, to develop the logic, to develop the model. So logic means the model, to develop the model, and then we use 20% data to test whether the model is working properly or not. So in this process, first we go with the supervised learning, or after developing a model we can go for unsupervised learning. So once we have developed the model, just the machine will go on taking the input, and then it will provide output, and then it will give you the results or the required things. Sometimes after certain processing we have to intervene the machine and then check whether it is performing in a proper way or not. So that we call as semi-supervised, and if it is not performing, then we have to go for enforcement learning. So what are the components of the supervised learning? So in supervised learning, the tasks to be performed are, first we have to classify. So as we have classified the given data into two classes, yes and no, then we need to understand how do we go for the classes. So can we predict? Then we need to understand the regression techniques. Then which is better? So whether the classification is better or regression is better, that we have to decide for the best model. And then we go for the classification by using this library, or we call it as sklearn in short. So we'll see this one by one. So in supervised learning, so what we have to decide first, whether the classification is good or the model, which is a regression model, is good. So here in classification, as we have defined the labels yes and no. So in regression we don't need that. Okay, so without knowing what exactly is that, we can think whether they are dependent on each other or not, whether one way is going to be independent and other is going to be dependent, whether we can predict one feature with the help of other feature. Okay, and for that we have to go with the regression techniques. Now if we consider the classification, so in our example we have considered only two things. Okay, so yes and no. Okay, so if we consider yes and no, then it is going to be the binary classification. So we'll have one class of yes, the other class of no, and so we'll be having a binary classification, that the entire data will be divided into two parts. But we can have it in more way. So suppose we consider age, salary, and then BHK apartment. So in BHK apartment we can have 1 BHK apartment, 2 BHK apartment, 3 BHK apartment, and that way we can go for the multi-class classification. Okay, So we may have the binary classification, we may have the multi-class classification, depending on our requirement, and then we can think the next. Okay, so while classification, we have the training data, then using the training data, we need to understand what are the features. Okay, so what features we need to concentrate on or focus on. Then after understanding the features, we need to provide this data to the model that we develop by using the previous techniques, and then we have to see whether that model is performing properly or not. And now, if it is not up to the quality, then we have to tune the machine learning algorithm, and again we have to build the better machine learning model, and then we have to again see that this model performs up to the mark or not, and then if it performs up to the mark, we accept it and we move further. Now, what types of classifiers we use for this data? So we have some linear classifiers like linear regression. Then we have the decision tree classifier, that if it happens yes, if it happens no, if it happens where to go, if it doesn't happen what to do. This way we can have the decision tree classifier. Then we have the support vector machine, that machines will be using this support vector machines will be using the minimum distance algorithm, and then they will classify the given data into different classes. Then we can go for the artificial neural networks. So we can use the ANN classifiers to classify this data, or we can go with the Bayesian regression, Gaussian Naive Bayes classifier, or we can go for this gradient descent classifiers. And there are some more methods like random forest, AdaBoost, bagging classifier, voting classifier, and extra tree classifier, like that. So these are the classifiers which will help us to classify the given data. Now, what are the different applications for these classifiers? So we go with the basic. Nowadays we are considering automated vehicles, or the vehicles which will not require drivers, so driverless cars. So Google's self-driving car is an example. So it uses deep learning, which enables the classification techniques to detect the obstacles and classify uh, to classify the obstacles. Then we have the emails, so that is classified into spams and bulk and all. So this is all done with the simplest techniques of classification. Then we use this classification in detecting health problems, facial recognition, or speech recognition. So these are some of the applications that I have listed here. Now, how the regression techniques work? Okay, so here we have, this is the data set. So these are the data points which are scaled, okay, on the scale of minus 0.5 to plus 0.5. So range is going to be 1. And now I want to find whether I can have a relationship between these data points. Okay, whether there is a relationship between the X feature and Y feature. So I have plotted the data X feature versus Y feature. Okay, and now this is the data. So we have to think whether we can predict the relationship or not, and this relationship can be predicted using the regression techniques. So here we try to predict these points. Okay, and then this is the predicted relationship. Okay, so what relationship we have? What are the techniques, or what different regressions we can have? So we have the linear regression, logistic regression, polynomial regression, stepwise regression, Rees regression, lasso regression, elastic net regression. So these are the different techniques. Now we'll see this one by one. So if we consider the linear regression, then it is going to be y is equal to ax plus b, where we have x feature and a y feature. Now this linear regression gives you the lines, okay, on the different scales. So we can see this is a different scale, this is a different scale. Then by using scaling, we can get into the same scale. So it is minus 10 to 10. And then what happens if we plot the observation? So these are the observation. This is our training set, so that we have plotted, and then we try to fit the model to this training set. Okay, so here we are trying to fit the model, or we are finding the model. Okay, so this is the model which is best fit to this data, or to this training set. Okay, now if we see at this training set, then we get this the best model, and after getting this base model, we can consider, or we can test this model with the help of the testing data set. Okay, so if the model performs best on the testing data set, then we can consider, yes, this is exactly the model for which we were looking. And then the remaining decision, once you get the model, the remaining decisions are taken accordingly. So if we want to predict something, then the projection is taken, and then the projection can predict anything. So when we know the value of x, we can predict the value of y. When we know the value of y, we can predict the value of x, and like that. So it becomes possible to predict in two ways, or from one feature to another feature. Then we have the logistic regression. So if we consider up to beta 0 plus beta 1 x1, then this is the linear term. But if we consider the another feature, then it becomes the logistic regression. So here you can add as many features as you want. Okay, and if we consider the error term, then we have the polynomial regression. Then if we consider one by one, then it becomes the stepwise regression. Then we have, if we consider all features at a time, so it is X, which is a matrix of all features. So that gives you then the Y, the another feature. So all features versus one feature. Okay, then we call it as the Rees regression. Then we have the lasso regression. Then we have the elastic net regression, and like that. So we can use these different techniques of regression with the different data set. So here, if we consider the classification that we have used, and then the regression we have seen. Okay, so if we consider in classification, so the mapping of function is used for the values which are predefined classes, but here we go for the continuous output. Now here in classification we go for the discrete values, in regression we go for the continuous values. So you can see in regression we can have a continuous curve. but in classification we have the clusters, we have the points. Now in nature of predicted data, so in classification we don't know where the point will lie, but in regression definitely we know where the point will lie, and that's why this is unordered, this is order. Then the classification, we always try to measure the accuracy, whether it fits or not. In regression, we try to get the minimum error. Okay, and so that's why we called it as root mean square error. So we try to get this RMS error to be minimum. So these are the differences. Now, if we think of the unsupervised learning, that means the model is there and you just have to think over what are the decisions. So here, if we consider the training data that we feed, it is unstructured data. So this may contain noise or may have the missing values and may have the unknown data also. It may not have the labeled labels, so it is unlabeled data. And then the machine will try to give you some of the pictures, some of the graphs, some of the results, and then we can think over it, and then if required we accept, or we may go for supervised learning. Now what happens in unsupervised learning? So we have this unstructured data. So given algorithm will try to get some results for you, then we have to think of the results, whether they are correct or not, or required or not, and if not, then we go for the supervised learning. So here, how this unsupervised learning is given, or how these results are generated. So there are two ways. So by using the clustering and by using the association. So whether the vectors, so they are considered as the vectors. So vectors, whether they have the association or not, or can we have some vectors in one cluster, okay, or can we have some observations in one cluster, and then how many clusters you can have. Okay, so the technique of clustering is basically it gives you the groups based on the patterns in the data. So our machine model, they find the different patterns, they try to figure out what are the patterns, and then after getting the patterns in the data, these are considered as the clusters, or observations are put in the clusters. Okay, so depending on one pattern, one cluster is made, other pattern, the other cluster, and so on. So this clustering technique is used by the model that we have already. Now in association, so we give some rule to the machine, and then according to that rule it finds the vectors. So what are the vectors which are following the rule, and what are the vectors which are not following the rule. So this rule we define and we give it. So these are the predefined model and predefined rules, so which are given to the machine, and directly the data is given, so we can generate, or the machine can generate the results. Now after this, what are the algorithms that are used in unsupervised learning? So in clustering, basically we use k-means clustering. Then we have the density based spatial clustering of application with noise. So as I said, this is a raw data, may contain noise. So depending on that, we can consider this technique called DB-scan. Then we have the balance, iterative reducing and clustering using hierarchies. So we apply one technique and then see that the technique works for the data. Then if not, we reiterate that technique, or we again consider the another way or another iteration on that data, and then we see that whether it gives you a better clustering or not, and if not, then again we try. So this is called as balance iterating, reducing and clustering using hierarchies. Then we have hierarchical. So first we'll allow some data, and then we'll see that what are the distances, and then we go on clustering. So one parameter we fix, then we get one cluster, other parameter we fix, and then we get the cluster, next parameter, and then we get the cluster. So like that we have this hierarchical clustering. Now, so what happens in semi-supervised learning? So here we have the data, then which is provided to the machine. So it gives you some results. So our agent is the machine. So it gives you some result, but if that results are not up to the mark, then we have to take the action, and then we have to consider the environment or the model properly, and then if required we tune it, and then again we send it to the machine, and then this process goes on till we get the confidence, yes, machine is going to perform better. So then we have, till that process we have to do, or we have to repeat this. Okay. Then what are the applications? So we have the different applications like prediction, we have the identification of handwriting, then we have this is done by the logistic regression. So this is actually the breast cancer diagnosis done by the logistic regression. Then there are many systems which are using this machine learning algorithms. Now these are the some of applications. Okay, so applying the multinomial waves to NLP problems, that natural language processing problems, K-means clustering we can use for image compression, then deep learning, and these are the references that I have used. So mathematics for machine learning, then machine learning and statistical modeling approach for image retrieval, and many more. So thank you.
Ramya, please unmute your.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So we have a few questions from our audience. So I would like our participants to raise their hands so we may unmute you.
Yes.
Rajput Wala Mois Tahir, please unmute. Can we unmute Rajkot Wala Mois Tahir?
Vivek, can you unmute the participant, please? Give access to the mic.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, sir, I had a question that how do we make sure that which algorithm is best used?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, we need to understand the data. Okay. What is the data given? Okay. And then we need to understand what are the features in that data. Okay. So after understanding the data and extracting the features, we have to build the model. Okay. And then after building the several models, we have to compare the models which gives you the best result. So this way we can decide which model is going to be the best, and then that model we have to feed to the machine so that it can perform the remaining task.
Okay,
I
sir.
hope I answer your query, Moise.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we have a question in the chat box.
Yes.
What does backpropagation algorithm focus on?
Great. Okay. So as I told you about the reinforcement. Okay. So what we have to do is, if our model is not performing in a proper way, okay, so that means we have to go back and see whether we have committed any mistake or not, or whether we have fed the data properly or not. Okay, and then that we have to go back and see. So this, if there is a error, then it will go in the loop and it will go on increasing. Okay, so we have to stop that. So this is what we have to consider with this algorithm, or what we consider
Yes.
with this algorithm. Yeah.
So another question. Um, how do we make sure, just a second. What is the role of active functions in neural networks?
Pardon?
What is the role of activation functions in neural network?
Okay. So this question is basically for the neural networks. Okay. So see, as we have to start the machine, we have to send a message to the machine that please you start your work. Okay, so the stimulus, okay, for the machine to start is like that activation function. So for example, the simple machine, if we'll simple circuit, if we'll consider our charger, so if we plug in and then we switch on the button, it will not start. So we have to give one impulse to that, so it starts working. Okay, that impulse is nothing but the activation function, like in neural networks.
Okay, sir. One more question. What's
Yes.
cross validation?
What?
What's cross validation?
Cross
What is
validation.
cross validation? Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes. So cross validation is basically, see, we have a data, we have consider, as I said, the 80-20 portion we have to consider. So 80% data is used for training. Okay, so we train and we build the different models. Okay, and once we build the different models, we have to see how the different models perform. Okay, and then this 20% data is used to validate that model. Okay, so whether that using the 20% data, we are getting the results, required results or not. And if we are getting the required results, the model is good. If we are not getting the required results, that means the model is not that good. Okay, so we have to rebuild or modify our model. And this process of validating is called cross validation. So we check whether our model performs in a proper way or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Participants, if you have any question, please do raise your hands. So we have another question from one of our engineering students. What's the proper route to, just a second, proper route of learning mathematics concept?
Oh, that's great. Okay. So basically, as I am a mathematician and then move to the applications of mathematics. Okay. So basically, if you want to learn the mathematics, okay, do not try to mug up the things. Okay, try to understand the concepts. Okay, rather than solving 10 problems on one concept, you try to understand that concept properly. Try to understand how that concept is used. Okay, how that is implemented. Okay, this is, I think, the proper way. So
Yes, sir.
understanding the
Thank you, sir.
concept is the better way.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Participants, any questions? Okay. Sir, thank you for such an enlightening and wonderful presentation on the right way to introduce mathematics to machine learning. So, on behalf of Shah and Anchor Kutchi Engineering College, I have a small token of appreciation for our
Thank you.
speakers. Please accept it with our sincere thanks. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to thank each and every one of you present here today. Thank you for being such a lovely audience. I hope you all join us again on the 25th of September for Machine Learning and Mechanical Engineering.